get-go.
Just want to start today with a trigger warning disclaimer. This podcast contains descriptions of death and drowning. Hi, I'm Katie Carpenter.
I'm Terry Kovanitz.
We apologize for any and all mistakes today as we begin this episode of Titanic Transcripts.
Cyril Evans, you've been sworn. Where do you reside?
Seaforth, Liverpool.
How old are you?
20 years old, sir.
What is your business?
Wireless operator on the Californian, sir.
How long have you been a wireless operator?
Just over 6 months.
Have you had any special training in that field?
Yes, sir.
What?
I had 10 months at the Marconi School, the same school as Bride, the junior operator on the Titanic.
What other ships than the Californian have you ever been employed on?
On the Cedric, sir, the White Star boat.
Any others?
No, sir.
How long were you on the Cedric?
1 trip, sir.
And when was that made?
I don't know exactly, sir. I've had 3 trips on the Californian.
You've been on the Californian ever since you left the Cedric?
Yes, sir.
Where were you Sunday, April 14th?
From 7 o'clock in the morning until 8:30, I was on duty. From 8:30 to 9, I was having my breakfast. From 9 o'clock to 12:30, I was on watch. From 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, I was on watch. From 3 o'clock to 5:30. At 5:30, I had my dinner. From 6 o'clock, I was on my watch. I was on watch until 11:05. I heard the Titanic working. I put down the phones, and I turned in.
What time did you receive the CQD call from the Titanic Sunday night?
I did not receive it, sir.
You did not receive it at all?
No, sir.
What time did you communicate with the Titanic?
In the afternoon, sir. I was sending a message to the Antillian of our line. I was sending an ice report handed in by the skipper, sir. I was sending to the Antillian, and the Titanic called me up, and we exchanged signals, exchanged an official TR. We call it a TR when a ship gets in communication with another. I said, "Here's a message, an ice report." And he said, "It's all right, old man." He said, "I heard you send it to the Antillian." He said, "Bye," and that is an expression used among ourselves.
And what does that mean?
It's an expression used. It means to say enough or finished. It is spelled B-I.
Through?
Yes.
So it means goodbye?
No, it does not mean goodbye.
Do you know with what operator you were communicating on the Titanic?
No, sir.
Do you know whether it was Phillips or Bride?
No, sir. I do not know who was on watch.
But Bride had been in school with you.
Yes, sir. I do not know who was on the Titanic, though.
And did you know Phillips?
I had met Phillips in the London office.
You do not recall which one it was you spoke with that night?
You never know who is on watch unless the operator is inclined to talk and tell you his name. Then you get to know the name of the person operating at the other end.
When that message was sent by you, do you recall the time exactly?
It was sent at 5:30 p.m. New York time on the 10th of April, sir. I worked New York time.
And what did the message say?
I have the message here, sir, but I have not had authority from my company to disclose it.
Well, I think you may disclose it with perfect propriety. It was our understanding with Mr. Marconi that this information would be obtained. Are you a Marconi operator?
Yes, sir.
If you're willing to disclose it with that assurance, I will be glad to have you read it.
It is a master service message handed in on the 14th of April from the Californian to Captain Antillian. It is dated 6:30 p.m. ATS, which means apparent time ship. Latitude 42.3 north, longitude 49.9 west. 3 large bergs, 5 miles to southward of us. Regards, signed Lord.
I would like to know the date.
I said it was handed in on the 14th, sir.
Sunday the 14th.
Handed in and sent the same day.
And is the hour given?
The sent date was 5:35 p.m. New York time.
And when did you next communicate with the Titanic, and what was the message you sent or received?
9:05 New York time, sir.
What day?
On the 14th, sir, the same evening. New York time, that is. I went outside of my room just before that, about 5 minutes before that, and we were stopped. And I went to the captain and I asked him if there was anything the matter. The captain told me that he was going to stop because of the ice, and the captain asked me if I had any boats, and I said the Titanic. He said, better advise him we are surrounded by ice, and stopped. So I went to my cabin, and at 9:05 New York time, I called him up. I said, say, old man, we are stopped and surrounded by ice. He turned around and said, shut up, I am busy, I am working Cape Race. And at that, I jammed him.
What do you mean by that?
By jamming, we mean when somebody is sending a message to somebody else, and you start to send at the same time, you jam him. He does not get his message. I was stronger than Cape Race, therefore my signals came in with a bang, and he could read me, and he could not read Cape Race.
And was that the last time you heard from the Titanic that night?
The last time I exchanged signals with them, I heard them working at 11:25.
I heard them working?
Working Cape Race. He was still working Cape Race, sending messages.
And that was at what time?
11:25 Sunday night.
And that was 15 minutes before the Titanic struck the iceberg? Or was that New York time?
That was 11:25 ship's time.
After you jammed him, as you say, you heard nothing further from him direct?
No, sir.
You picked up some wireless messages from him that were directed to Cape Race?
I had the phone on my ear, and I heard him sending, but I did not take them down.
You had the phones on your ears?
Yes, sir.
And you heard him sending those messages?
Yes, sir.
But you did not take them down?
No, sir.
What were those messages that you heard, as nearly as you can recollect?
They were private messages.
Can you recollect what they were?
You mean, did I read the messages?
Could you read them, or can you remember them?
No, sir.
Have you got them?
No, sir.
Then you are unable to furnish the committee with the contents of those private messages from the Titanic to the Cape Race station?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether they had any reference to ice?
I have no recollection, sir. I generally keep my ears open for anything about ice. If I hear anything about ice, and always take it down, ice or derelicts, I always take it down. I would not be positive I did not hear anything about ice, but I do not recollect anything.
And what time did you retire that night?
At 11:25. I still had the phones on my ears and heard him still working Cape Race about 2 or 3 minutes before the half-hour ship's time, that was. And at 11:35, I put the phones down and took off my clothes and turned in.
And when were you awakened?
About 3:30 a.m. New York time.
And who awakened you?
The chief's officer.
And what did he say?
He said, there is a ship that has been firing rockets in the night. Please see if there is anything the matter.
And what ship's officer was that?
The chief officer of our ship, Mr. Stewart.
And he said rockets had been fired during the night.
Yes, sir.
And he would like to have you see if there was anything the matter.
Yes, sir.
And what did you do?
I jumped out of bed, slipped on a pair of trousers and a pair of slippers, and I went at once to my key and started my motor and gave CQ. About a second later, I was answered by the Frankfurt, DKD, DFT. The DFT is the Frankfurt's call. He told me that the Titanic had sunk.
He told you that the Titanic had sunk?
Yes, sir.
And you went to your operating room.
My bunk is the same room, my bunk is in the same room as the apparatus.
And you put the telephone on your head.
Yes, sir.
And received from the Frankfurt.
I started my motor first, and I called CQ. CQ means all stations, someone answer. And I gave my own code signal. The DFT answered me. He said, do you know the Titanic has sunk during the night, collided with an iceberg? I said, no. Please give me the latest position. He gave me the position. I put the position down on a slip of paper, and then I said, thanks, old man, to the German operator. And then the Virginian started to call me MGM. He started to call up, and I told him to go. I answered him and told him to go. He said, do you know the Titanic had sunk? I said, yes, the Frankfurt has just told me. I sent him a message of my own, what we call a service message, that an operator can always make up if he wants to find out something. I sent a service message and said, please send me official message regarding Titanic, giving position.
Have you got with you the message you received from the Frankfurt at 3:40 Monday morning?
No, sir. That was not an official message. That was only a conversation. But a few minutes after that, I got an official message from the Virginian.
I would like any message, if you have it, that you received from the Frankfurt.
No, sir. I have none.
You've none at all?
No, sir. The only thing he gave me was the position of the Titanic. He did not send me an official message.
He gave you more than the position of the Titanic. He told you that the Titanic had sunk.
Well, he simply told me the Titanic had sunk.
And then he gave you her position.
Yes, sir. The chief officer was in the room, and I said, wait a moment, I will get an official message. I got the official message, and the positions were both the same. The position I got from the Virginian and the position I got from the Frankfurt were both the same. I sent that up to the skipper. I did not have time to date the message. I dated my own copy of the message, but I did not get the name of the ship on either, or the date, or who it was addressed to in my hurry.
Did you have any difficulty whatever working with the Frankfurt operator?
Not then, sir.
Oh, did you afterwards?
He was jamming a little afterwards and interfering when I was trying to get to the Carpathia.
Did the Frankfurt operator say anything to you about his having received a CQD call from the Titanic immediately after she had struck the iceberg?
No, sir.
Did he say anything to you about having received a rebuff from the operator of the Titanic?
No, sir.
Did you understand that the operator of the Titanic, after he had given the Frankfurt the CQD call, had waited 20 minutes before he had received any reply, and then received a reply from the Frankfurt asking what was the matter, and then he said to the Frankfurt, "You are a fool, keep out"? Did you hear anything of that kind from the Frankfurt operator?
No, sir.
Or from anyone else?
No, sir. Only from the papers when I got in.
Did you know the Frankfurt's position when she gave the message that the Titanic had sunk?
No, sir. He told me he was about 30 or 40 miles off. I remember that. But he did not give me the official position. No, sir.
Did he give you an unofficial position?
No, sir.
That is, the longitude and latitude?
No, sir.
But he said he was about 30 or 40 miles off.
Yes, sir.
And how did he happen to say that?
I asked him. I forget how it happened now, but he said, "We are 30 or 40 miles off. We are steaming as fast as we can." But this was after I had taken the message up and we were underway. I said we're steaming full speed now.
I understand you perfectly. He told you that after he had told you that the Titanic had sunk.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he tell you from whom he obtained the information that the Titanic had sunk?
No, sir.
Do you know from whom he obtained it?
I did not know until I got in, sir. I only knew from the newspapers and what I said just now.
Did you tell me what the mate said when he woke you up between 3 and 4 o'clock Monday morning?
He came into my room between 3 and 4, opened the door. He knocked at the door, but I was asleep, and he came in. He said he knocked at the door, and then he came in.
Was it locked?
No, we never lock a door on the ship. He came into my room, and I did not wake up, and he caught hold of me. As soon as he touched me, I woke up with a start. And he said, "Wireless, there is a ship that has been firing rockets in the night. Will you come and see if you can find out what is wrong? What is the matter?" I slipped on my trousers and called at once. Within 5 minutes, I knew what had happened.
I believe you had been in communication with the Carpathia the night before this, had you not?
No, sir.
Had you been in communication with the Parisian?
Yes, sir.
At what time?
I got him in the morning, sir, and then... No, excuse me, I think I got him the day before.
I think I will let you look that up a little later unless you have it handy there. What time?
6:30 a.m. New York time on the 13th of April. Exchanged TRs with the Parisian.
Did you know her position at the time?
No, sir.
Did you hear anything from the America on Sunday?
No, sir, not on the 14th.
I do not want you to have to take any time to look it up, but do you recall having obtained any communication with the America on Saturday? I'll not ask you to trouble yourself. If you have it right there, I would like to know.
No, sir, I did not.
You did not have any communication with the America?
No, sir.
Did you have any with the America after you left the scene of the Titanic's wreck?
I do not know. I do not think so.
You cannot recall?
I cannot recall it.
What are your wages per month?
£4.
And board?
Yes.
You have your board on the ship and room?
Yes.
Is that the regulation wage of the wireless telegraphers?
It is for a beginner, yes, sir.
Are you paid that by the steamship company or the Marconi company?
By the Marconi company.
Did you think it at all strange when you got shut up from the Titanic, or is that customary when you break in to prevent the jamming?
If he was working, he had a lot of messages to get off.
Do you think he got your full message?
His signals came in with a bang, therefore my signals must have come in to him very loudly.
Was he not already engaged in sending to Cape Race at that time?
He was receiving at the time I sent the message, at the time I communicated with him.
Would not his attention be directed toward the messages he was receiving from Cape Race, he being in communication with Cape Race, rather than the messages from you breaking in on the message?
I do not know about that. He must have received that anyway.
Can you take more than one message at the same time?
No, but my signals were the loudest.
And they would drown out his?
You would not hear the other one because I could not hear Cape Race that night.
So you think he must have received your message before he shut you off because you had the louder note and would have drowned out the message from Cape Race while you were transmitting your message?
He must have received my communication, yes, sir.
You are very sure of that, are you? You're confident that that must have been the fact, that he received your message and that while you were transmitting it, the other message would have been obscured or drowned out by your message?
Certainly, yes, sir. Cape Race will only be a whisper and mine would come in with a bang.
Just what was the message that you sent when you received that word, shut up? Will you read that again?
I said, "Say, old man, we are stopped and surrounded by ice."
That is what you said.
I called him up first. I said MGY 3 times and gave him my own call signal once, which is MWH. And then I said, "Say, old man, we are surrounded by ice," and stopped.
You gave your location, did you not?
No, sir. I was just giving that as a matter of courtesy because the captain requested me to.
So you expected a reply for him or an inquiry as to what your location was, where the ice was, did you not?
No, sir. I thought he was very much south of me because we were bound for Boston and we were north of the track. We were following the track of the Parisian.
You said the Frankfurt reported that she was 30 or 40 miles off.
Yes, sir.
Off from you or off from the Titanic?
Off from the scene of the disaster.
And do you know where the Frankfurt was as to you?
Southeast somewhere. He was on the homeward track, and he must have been south of us.
And the scene of the disaster was in what direction from you at that time?
I could not say exactly. Between southeast and southwest, I think, but I would not be sure of that.
Was the Frankfurt between you and the scene of the disaster?
I do not know, sir.
Have you any idea how far the Frankfurt was from you?
I can only work on that we were about 20 miles away.
From what?
From the Titanic, and therefore he would be 20 miles away from us.
You say that the operator of the Titanic was engaged in sending private messages to Cape Race. And what do you mean by private messages?
Messages being handed in by passengers.
By passengers to Cape Race?
Yes, sir.
And Cape Race to passengers, back and forth?
Yes, sir.
You did not know from whom they were sent or to whom they were sent, nor do you recall the nature of the messages?
No, I do not.
You are not supposed to know anyhow, are you? It would be a violation of the rules if you did know, would it not?
Yes, sir. Because when we go up for our examination in England, we have to make a statement saying that we will keep the secrecy of correspondence. That is an international convention.
Do you know Gill, who was a member of the crew of the Californian, Ernest Gill?
I think I have seen him, yes, sir.
Do you know him when you see him? Did you see him on the ship?
Yes, I've seen him.
Did you ever have any conversation with him about that ship that was seen that night throwing up rockets?
I think so. Practically everybody on the ship. It's been common talk on the ship.
From the talk on the ship, do you know when the rockets were seen that night? From what direction?
No, sir. I had turned in.
Do you know of the conversation or statement that was made to Gill about what he has testified here?
I do not know, sir. Nearly everybody on the ship has talked amongst themselves and in front of the other members of the crew about it.
Has he ever said anything to you in reference to his statement or testimony in the case of this matter?
You mean any special statement he made to me?
Yes. Has he ever said anything to you with reference to his statement that he made in this matter?
No, I do not think so.
Nothing with regard to the circumstances under which he made the statement or how he came to make it?
No.
Was the instrument on the Californian in good working condition?
It is the latest set out. It is in thorough working condition. It was inspected by Mr. Binns last trip.
How far can you send messages with it? What is its power as compared with the one on a Titanic?
The Californian is not a big ship, and she's only fitted with 60-volt dynamos, and our sets are made for 100-volt dynamos. Our converter, motor generator, is not made to run over 100 volts. Therefore, I get a little over half the power I should get.
And do you know about the instrument on the Titanic?
It was practically the same pattern as mine, only I believe he had a rotary spark. Got a musical note. I never got a musical note, but I think he had a rotating spark there.
There was no reason why you could not get his messages and he yours.
Oh, no, sir, except that I had turned in. I was off from 7 o'clock that night to 11:30. It is 16 hours for a man to be on watch.
When the mate aroused you and spoke about a ship having been seen sending up rockets, did he make any statement about when the ship was sending and what kind of rockets?
No, I slipped on my trousers and got the phones on my ears inside of 2 minutes.
And that was 4 a.m. on Monday morning.
It was 3:40 a.m. New York time.
And what ship's time was that?
I do not know. I have not worked out the ship's time. I do not know if the ship's clock was changed during that time.
Did Gil, the donkey man, ever talk to you about a story he was telling about the sending up of the rockets by a ship that night?
I think you may have mentioned it to me.
When?
Everybody on board has been speaking about it amongst themselves.
The captain, too?
Well, no, sir. I've never spoken to the captain about the matter of rockets at all.
None of this talk you have heard on the ship was in the presence of the captain?
No, sir.
In a general way, what was the talk with reference to that you heard on the ship?
Well, I could not say. It was just simply the usual talk about the rockets.
Were the rockets described?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir. I never heard them described.
Do you know whether they were distress rockets or some other kind of rockets?
No, sir, I do not. I did not see them myself.
As they were mentioned in this talk on the ship?
No, sir, I do not know.
You say everybody was talking on board amongst themselves about the rockets.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean by that they were saying that they themselves had seen the rockets? Or were they merely talking about it on the ship?
There was talk about it. Some of them said they had seen it, and some said they had not.
With how many did you talk who said they saw rockets that night?
Nobody.
Did you talk with anybody?
No one in particular.
Can you tell anyone you talked with who said he had seen the rockets that night?
No, sir.
What was the wavelength on your ship? 300 or 600 or what was it?
At present, it is 600 meters. I have also, according to the Telegraph Convention, fitted it so as to be able to be used as a 300-meter wavelength if necessary.
You say this message that you got from the Titanic came with a bang.
Yes, he had very high power. I do know that.
And it came with a bang.
It came, I should say, not absolutely with a bang, but with fairly loud signals. But you cannot tell by the strength of the signal where anybody is.
I was going to ask you whether that in itself would indicate your proximity to the ship with which you were in communication.
It's very hard to answer because it depends on how a boat is being tuned. I've had boats alongside of me sending, and I've replied to them, and their signals were the same as when they were 200 miles away. And other boats I have had 200 miles away with weak signals, and when they would get alongside, they would come with such a bang you would have to take the telephones away from your ears.
What wavelength did you employ when you sent that warning message to the Titanic Sunday night?
600 meters.
That is the maximum wavelength prescribed by the Berlin Convention, is it not?
That is the wavelength prescribed for ship stations and for stations.
And the minimum is 300?
Yes, especially...
And you used your 600 wavelength?
Yes, sir.
You did not know the wavelength employed by the Titanic in response to that message?
His would be 600, too.
That is, you think he would use his maximum wavelength?
He could not change his wavelength in that time.
He could not change it?
No, unless the station is...
But with a maximum wavelength of 600 in use between the Titanic and yourself, did that drown out any attempted communication with Cape Race?
You mean that my signals would drown the Cape Race signals?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, you are very certain that he got your message?
Yes, sir.
And you received his?
Yes, I received his, what he sent back.
You started to make some statement a moment ago that once a station is tuned in, and then there you stopped.
Once you get your station tuned, you cannot alter the wavelength, unless by special arrangement you can alter it to over 300 meters.
Did you complete your full message?
At 11 o'clock, approximately, 9:05 New York time.
Did you complete your full message to the Titanic before you got the injunction to shut up?
Yes, sir.
And that is the last communication you sent to or received from the Titanic?
Yes.
And that was about when?
That was exactly 9:05 New York time.
So that was about 30 minutes before the Titanic struck the iceberg.
It was 9:05, so that would be about 5 minutes past 11 ship time.
Did your mate say how he knew that there had been rockets fired?
No, sir.
The Titanic sank about 2 hours and 45 minutes before you were called from your bed.
Yes, sir.
Do you know why you were not called when the rockets were first seen?
No, sir.
What did the first mate or any other officer of the ship or member of the crew say to you about Captain Lord being notified 3 times that a vessel was sending up rockets?
Well, we have talked amongst ourselves, but...
One minute. I do not want any idle gossip. If you can recall anything that was said by any officer of your ship about that matter, I would like to have you state it, and if you cannot, just say so.
I know that the mate did not say anything to me, no.
The mate did not.
The mate did not say anything about the captain being notified.
And the mate was the man that called you?
Yes, the mate was the man who called me.
Did any other officer of the Californian say anything to you about having notified the captain 3 times that a vessel was sending up rockets?
I think the apprentice did.
And what is his name?
Gibson?
Is he now on the Californian?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say to you?
I do not know exactly. I know the effect.
Oh, I would rather have the language he used if you can give it.
I do not know his exact words.
Well, give it as near as you can.
Well, I think he said that the skipper was being called 3 times. I think that's all he said.
Who was meant by the skipper?
The captain, sir.
He was being called or had been called?
Had been called, sir.
Did you hear anyone else speak of it? Any officer of your ship?
No, I think not.
Now, witness, tell me if you heard anybody else say anything about the captain having been called 3 times and informed that rockets were being set up the night the Titanic sank.
Well, I do not remember any other special individual, but I do know it was being talked about a lot.
Collectively?
Yes, sir.
There was a lot of talk about it, but you cannot recall any individual who spoke to you about it.
No, sir, except the apprentice. I think he told me that he had called the captain.
And did this talk occur on board the Californian?
Yes, sir.
Immediately after the accident to the Titanic?
Before we got to the Titanic, yes, sir.
Before you reached the Titanic?
Before we reached the scene of the disaster.
Monday morning?
Yes, sir.
Before you reached the scene of the disaster?
Yes, sir.
The men on the ship talked about it, did they?
Yes, sir.
Generally?
Yes, sir.
And what did they say? What was said?
From people taking up the conversation, I know it was said that rockets had been seen and had been fired. They did not know what rockets they were. I know they said that rockets had been fired off and that the captain had been roused.
How many times?
3 times, I think it was, sir.
Is that all you heard said?
That is all I can recollect, yes, sir.
Was there any talk of this kind after you left the scene of the sinking of the Titanic?
Yes, it has been talked about all the time since then.
They have talked about it all the time since then?
Yes, sir.
As an unusual and extraordinary occurrence?
Yes, sir.
Did anybody in the course of this conversation that you heard say anything about having seen the Morse signals used?
Oh, no. I remember the apprentice told me that he got the Morse lamp out and called up on that, sir, but he did not get any reply on that.
And he started to call up the Titanic?
I do not know whether it was the Titanic.
But the vessel from which the rockets was being fired, he tried to call her up with his Morse signals?
With his Morse lamp, yes, sir.
And he got no Morse reply?
That is correct.
Do you remember whether he made any attempt to attract the attention of that ship by firing rockets himself?
No, I do not think he did, sir.
Was there anything said about the direction in which those rockets were seen? Did they say that they were off where the Titanic was sunk?
Nobody specified any special direction where they came from. From the south, they were.
The direction in which the Titanic was?
I would not be sure about that.
In all this conversation, did they say these rockets came from that boat which the captain has mentioned, or that they came from the Titanic?
They did not know which.
Was it said that the rockets were those which had been sent up by the Titanic? What was the talk on board ship?
Some of them seemed to think so, sir, and some not, sir.
Has anyone told you that he was to receive $500 for a story in regard to those rockets? Anyone on your boat?
I think the donkey man mentioned it.
And what did he say?
He said, I think I will make about $500 on this.
Did he say that to you?
Yes, sir.
That is the man who was a witness here this morning.
Gil, the second donkey man.
He said that he thought he would make $500.
Yes.
And when was that said?
The night before last.
Did you hear him say that at any other time?
No, sir.
He said that to you the night before last?
Yes, sir.
And where were you then?
I had gone ashore, and I was outside of the station, I think. I do not remember whether it was the North Station or the South Station.
It was after you had landed.
It was after I had landed, yes, sir. He asked if I was not going back anymore. He said he had been up and told the newspaper about the accident.
And he said that he would make about $500 out of it.
He said, I think we will make about $500 out of it.
I understood you to say that there was an apprentice on the bridge with the officer?
Yes, sir.
And that apprentice told you he saw these rockets?
Yes, sir.
He said he saw rockets?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether he got anything for his story or whether he has given out a story?
I do not think for a moment that he told anybody other than the people on the boat.
But you got your information directly from the apprentice who was on the bridge with the officer?
Yes, sir.
That he himself had seen rockets the night the Titanic went down?
Yes, sir.
And did you hear the captain say that he saw rockets?
I heard so the next day, but I did not hear anything about it the same day.
You heard him swear to it here.
Yes, sir.
White rockets, he said, did he not?
I think so.
Have you yourself been offered or have you received any money from any person for any information in your possession regarding the Titanic accident or wreck?
No, sir.
And the movement of the steamship Californian?
No, sir.
Let us understand a little more clearly about the circumstances under which the fourth officer awakened you.
The chief officer awakened me.
Did he say that the rockets had just been seen or that they had been seen during the night?
He came into my room and he said, rockets have been seen going off. He did not state any specific time. He said, rockets have been seen going off. Will you go and call? He came on watch at 4 o'clock, I think. He was down below before.
He had just been awakened himself, probably, before he came to see you?
Yes, sir.
And there was nothing from which you could ascertain when these rockets had been seen?
No, sir.
From your conversation with him, you could not determine that?
No, sir. Nothing.
Have you heard from anyone regarding the Titanic disaster, whether any rockets were sent up on the Titanic the night she sank?
No, sir.
You have no information of that kind?
No, sir. No information from anybody on the Titanic.
What were you told when you were aroused with reference to the rockets?
The mate came to my room, and he said, rockets have been seen to have been fired off. He did not say when. Will you call and see if you can find out what is the matter? And in 5 minutes, I knew what was the matter.
The mate evidently considered that these rockets were distress rockets, did he?
He did not say so to me.
But he would not ask you to inquire.
He said to find out.
He would not ask you to inquire unless he apprehended there was some trouble.
I do not know. 2 or 3 days before, I got word from another operator that there was a boat wanting to be towed, an oil tank. She was short of coal and wanted to be towed, and I believe he thought it was her, but I would not say. He did not happen to mention it to me, and he has not mentioned it since.
Who was that?
The chief officer.
When would you have gone on duty Monday morning, April 15th, if you had not been awakened by the first mate?
Between 7 and a quarter past. The steward calls me at 7 o'clock.
When the first mate awakened you and told you that the first officer wanted you to get up, that rockets had been seen...
It was the chief officer that came into my room, sir.
The chief officer came to your room and aroused you?
Yes, sir.
And told you rockets had been seen?
Yes, sir.
And you deemed that of sufficient importance to arise immediately?
Yes, sir. I put on my trousers and called.
Otherwise, you would have remained in your bed until what time?
If I had not been called, I should have remained in my bunk until 7 o'clock, or between 7 and a quarter past.
I believe you said you never received any offer or payment for any information in your possession regarding the Titanic disaster?
No, sir.
Have you accepted any money for anything of that character?
No, sir.
Would you receive any money for information of that character?
No, sir, I would not.
Why?
I do not think it is right to receive money for anything like that.
Okay, that is all. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, meaty.
The being on duty for 16 hours on watch,
yeah,
that he says, is like, woof.
That's, yeah, a long time. And then, of course, he missed,
Yeah.
he was on duty for 16 hours and then missed the event.
But I agree. I don't know why they didn't wake him up sooner.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that we need to, or Senator Smith needs to investigate here. There's obviously more going on because they're really hammering into it too about the captain being roused 3 times and that, I agree. Why wasn't he?
Yeah. Do they normally put
earlier
off rockets in the middle of the night for parties, or because I thought it was just for distress signals that one would do?
Because they do seem confused if it was what kind of rocket, but I do agree. I mean,
Senator Smith
what else
seems
do you
confused.
Have?
But, so,
I agree. I mean, I think any would be kind of investigated or curious, at least.
Yeah. And I did like that Mr. Evans was like, I don't have authority to disclose anything I got.
I like, he's very tight-lipped, no loose lips, sink ships here. He's very, good job, give that man a raise.
Yes.
He didn't, talk about any of the private messages or give any gossip, especially when he's, there's talk about it on the ship. Oh, I don't know, though.
Right.
Just general.
And I liked when Senator Smith again asked, so you picked up some of his messages? Like, no, they're in the air.
And they're just out there.
I didn't take them.
Yeah, I didn't write them down.
Got them. It wasn't like I took them and said, ooh, now I got these.
Stolen.
I'll jam you up that way. And his when he keeps asking these questions, like they were private messages, and what did you mean? Yeah. So you're saying that you were asleep?
Oh, but so you heard them. So what did they say?
It reminds me of in Legally Blonde when Elle Woods is questioning the girl with the curly hair, and she doesn't really know where she's going yet. So she just keeps asking the same questions in different ways while she figures out what direction she wants to go.
I feel like that's totally possible of Senator Smith here, because this episode particularly, man, he just goes around and around
so
and around.
Elle Woods, yes.
Yeah.
So you say you were getting your hair done. And then you were in the shower.
And then...
And you were getting your hair done. And then
style
you took a shower.
Also, just for our listeners, I saw in my mom's notes she wrote Elle Woods, but that's also the name of her dog. So I was really curious where she was going with that. But that does make sense. Yes, it is very
the
Elle
movie,
Woods.
not the dog. And, the Frankfurt knew that they sunk.
Oh, my goodness.
Can you imagine how they felt?
Oh, I know that I stuttered a little bit because I was trying to make sense of what I was reading a couple times. That was very shocking to me, that the Frankfurt was just like, oh, did you know the Titanic had sunk? And then a little later, it does say, that they said they were on their way. We were on our way also.
Now.
But did the Frankfurt ever get there? Because I don't remember hearing about them.
We haven't heard about that yet.
Disaster or anything.
No, after the Californian, or after the Carpathia telling the Californian to look for extra people, I haven't heard about anything else showing up.
I agree. So that was very shocking to me. And especially, so it also sort of seems like Frankfurt just kind of knew what was going on, because the Frankfurt knew about the CQD. So, did they just hang out? And,
right.
They
had that
where were you?
Yeah.
Because
had to be
I'd have to go back and look. I do think
moment.
I posted on our Facebook page the map of where the ships were at the time.
Yeah. I think you did.
So I'd have to go back and see, but wasn't Frankfurt the closest? I thought. Let me go back and see. Nobody quote me on this. But it just seemed very shocking to me. So I know a couple times I kind of tripped on my words because I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah, that was a gasp moment. And then I know this isn't for me, these interviews. I know that.
What?
However, I wish they would be consistent on ship time or New York time.
Yes.
Because I get very confused.
This one was particularly confusing.
Was it
because he was giving
3
New York
hours
time
after
very
the
consistently,
rockets?
and then all of a
5?
sudden he switched to ship's time, and then
then
when
back.
the senator asked, well, then what is that? And he's like, I haven't worked it out yet. So, it's a little confusing to figure out the timeline exactly of when this all happened.
So I wish they would be more consistent, although I know it's not just for me. And I liked when Evans said, just the usual talk about rockets.
Yeah, just the usual.
'Cause we talk about that all the time. And then how the senator is asking, well, what were the conversations? Well, what was being said? What's going on?
Yeah.
But then when he asks him about,
but
then when Evan starts to say about, well, what I heard, and he's like, oh, no gossip, no gossip.
I don't want any gossip.
I just want gossip about this.
I don't want you to trouble yourself looking it up. And then I love when
but no gossip.
Senator Smith fully interrupts him on something, and then after he goes, now you were saying something about when it was tuned to a certain thing, but then you stopped.
You just stopped for some weird reason.
And then also when he calls him witness.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where we are
That's
now.
kind of rude.
And so, of course, again, the "you fool" was brought up a bunch of times. And then I knew when Evans said, "Shut up, shut up." I'm trying to get my messages off, that they'd bring that up again and again.
Yeah, I'm just going to jam him up.
Did you hear anything from the Frankfurt about being called a fool? Did he say anything to you? And I also like, though, when he said, "Did you have trouble with the Frankfurt operator?" He said, Evan said, "Not them, sir."
Oh,
and
intrigue.
I wish he would have probed a little more.
Ah, dang. And this is like a one-off. It's not a part one, so...
Yeah, so again, Senator Smith is missing the trick here of, what you should
every
be asking.
single time. And then the oil tanker that wanted a tow, that's an intriguing little point. But how many other ships thought that the rockets or, that other ships think the same thing? That, oh no, it's just this one wants to tow.
He needs a tow. We're not doing that.
No.
Also, I just looked up what a donkey man is.
Oh, thank you.
It's a crew member on a ship who operates the donkey engine, which is a steam-powered winch engine. So, that's what the donkey man is.
Okay.
Nothing too interesting, I guess.
Well, thank you, because I was very taken aback by that.
But what happens to our boy
Cyril
Furmstone
Evans? Well, he did stay with the Marconi Company, and he worked in Mesopotamia. And after this, instead of on a ship, he went to Mesopotamia and worked where he was one of those radio listening stations.
Oh, fun!
And then he was on a train. And it would go into the desert and away from the city. So we'd get those and stuff, and then they'd take it out in the desert to do their telegraphing away from the city noise. And then they would come back on train and get the next messages.
How interesting.
And when we turned the ones that they had. So that was pretty cool. And the coworkers he had on the train, he told them that there was only one radio frequency, and the Titanic log-jammed it. And the log-jammed the airways by sending a plethora of revenue-generating telegrams. And that's
revenue-generating?
Yes, and that's why...
That's why
Phillips was so rude about "Don't be interrupting me" when he was talking to Cape Race, because he, But he was named Cyril Evans in 1912 when he was born, but his mother added his mother's maiden name, Furmstone, to throw off the reporters who were hounding him about this.
That's true. It's probably annoying.
Yeah, so that's really interesting.
Right,
and he died at 47. I don't know why, but maybe the train. I don't know, but anyway,
interesting little
nice little change in my name.
In Mesopotamia,
because I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
If you're not paying me, and I don't think should be paid. So I don't know. So that's.
All right. Well, that was an interesting one, and now I can't wait to hear what the next people have to say.
Yes.
Because we got to hear about this Gil and his statement. The donkey man.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for us. We'll see you next time.
Bye. As always, thank you for listening. Please be sure to let us know what you're thinking in the comments or at titanictranscripts@gmail.com. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page, Titanic Transcripts, for more interesting tidbits and general discussion.